the main thing that we wanted to talk about today is going to be how to practice. Okay, because this is something that is not only important for your daily life, but it's also really important here in jiu-jitsu as well. How you practice is just as important as what you practice. We talked about how practice makes permanent on Monday, right? Just because you're practicing something doesn't mean you're going to be good at it. So how you practice
doesn't mean that you will master it.
Exactly. So how you practice is just as important. So let's take an example. Let's say, like a jiu-jitsu example, let's say you're doing an arm bar. Okay, if I say, okay, Johnny, you're gonna go practice your arm bar right now. Okay, so how does Johnny do that? Okay, well, how do we practice? Okay, so first Johnny needs to say, all right, I need to first find a partner. Or maybe if you don't have a partner, I'm gonna find a grappling dummy.
Even before that, he needs to know all of the steps required to do it correctly. All right, he needs to learn it, essentially. That's the first step to mastery. So before you even start practicing, you need to have all of the instructions laid out in front of you, or you need to have been taught all of the different steps before you start practicing.
So if we're pretending like this is a class, let's say, you know, Coach Seth and I just taught the lesson and we say, okay, Johnny, go and practice. So hopefully he has a partner, or if he doesn't, he'll have a grappling dummy or something. And so he sits there and he says, okay, it's time to practice. So what's the first thing he does? Well, most people will probably just get on their partner and try doing the steps like the coach showed them, and that can work perfectly fine. But before you even physically do it, you need to think about it first. You need to imagine yourself doing it.
Visualize.
Yeah. So when you see us demonstrating or showing you the technique, like without saying anything, we're not just doing that because we're showing off. We're doing that so that you can visualize yourself doing that same thing. So when we show the arm bar from the mount, you need to think, okay, let me think about myself doing it just like the coach just showed. And now I can try to do it physically. I'll try to do the steps, step number 1, step number 2, so on and so on. All right, so you visualize first. That's number 1. Probably the most important, especially with what's going on today. You might not have a training partner at home, so you have to visualize a lot of stuff. Like when we're doing last class on Monday, we were doing some single legs. You probably didn't have a partner to actually do a single leg on.
Grabbing an invisible leg, pulling it into your chest.
Absolutely. You had to visualize. You had to think about it. We got Anthony joining us on Facebook. What's up, Anthony? All right, so the next piece is going to be actually physically doing it. But if we were to do something like an arm bar, that can be pretty complicated. If you try to do all of it at once, you're probably gonna mess up. So like we've talked about before, you need to break it down into little baby steps, okay? First, I grab this part of the arm. Next, I pull the arm like this. Next, I turn my body here, so on and so on, right? When we teach a lesson in class, we don't just say, if coach and I are doing it like an arm bar, so coach is on his back, I don't just say, okay, everybody, here's the arm bar. All right, what is it? Go practice.
All right, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. 1, 2.
Nobody's gonna know how to do it. So when we teach the technique in class, what do? Okay, step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. Okay, everybody, what's step number 1? What's step number 2? What was step number 3? So that way you're seeing, okay, it's like little pieces of a puzzle. It's not just one giant piece that you're not gonna know how to do. So anyone can grab an arm. Not everyone can do an arm bar, but everyone can grab an arm. So that's the first step that you need to start with. And we're talking about this like jiu-jitsu, but remember, this applies to everything.
Okay? Yeah, we mentioned musical instruments are a really good demonstration of getting mastery over something. We used McKenna's guitar as an example. She had just started practicing guitar. When you're practicing any type of musical instruments, you need to start out by mastering the small skills, like doing scales. You can't do a scale unless you know what a scale is and you know what it should sound like. So you can't just go into guitar and just start diddling on it with your fingers and expect to master guitar. Somebody has to teach you, or you have to be able to observe what it should look like and what it should sound like before you start practicing. Because I can practice playing a guitar with all of my hands just like this, but that's not gonna really lead me to playing guitar very well. All right, I need to know how to hold it. I need to know what it should sound like. And I need to know those basic skills so that I can then master the entire skill set.
And that's the point of a teacher or a coach. They're gonna show you the little pieces and they're gonna show you how to build it, and they're gonna show you what it's supposed to look like, right? In school, when you're doing a math problem, your teacher's gonna show you a few examples first. They're not just gonna say, okay, here's how you do long division. They're gonna say, okay, let me put up this long division problem. I'm going to do it. And then that way you can see what it's supposed to look like. Okay. Same thing, like with music. You know, Seth played violin when he was growing up. I played piano when I was growing up. I picked up guitar like we talked about on Monday. And because of what I had learned in my past learning instruments, I taught myself how to play the guitar just by going onto the internet. And I used the internet to teach myself. But what did I do? I went on, I watched people playing guitar. I watched lessons about it. So, you know, you can teach yourself how to do something. That's possible. You don't have to have a teacher or a coach.
But you have to have a lot of self-discipline.
Right.
You have to understand how to master something. You have to understand how to practice something. So yeah, you can do it without a teacher. You can do it without a coach. But a coach and a teacher makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. So if we return back to our jiu-jitsu example of practicing the armbar. So Johnny's visualized himself doing it. He has a partner or a grappling dummy or whatever. He's gone through, he's done it step by step. That's awesome. Has he mastered it though? Well, not yet. He needs to put it into practice, right? So for example, with the armbar, he needs to roll. He needs to actually spar. And what does he need to try to do? The armbar. If he can't do the armbar when he's rolling and he's actually doing jiu-jitsu, well, he certainly hasn't mastered the armbar then. If you've mastered the armbar, you can do the armbar on this person, this person, this person, this person, anybody you want, because you've practiced it so many times and you are a master of the armbar.
Yeah, so mastery is like the final level.
Yeah.
You can learn an armbar. You might recognize an armbar. You might be able to sometimes do an armbar, but mastering something like that means you understand it. You can do it whenever you're asked to. You are a master.
You can do it upside down, front to back, whatever type of armbar you want, okay? So that's the end result, is practicing so much that, like we said last time, you can't do it wrong. You practice it so many times that you can't do it wrong, all right? And we said how, you know, at a certain point, if you practice so much, sometimes things can get boring, which is when you can move on to another skill, right? Maybe you say, oh man, the armbar, it's getting old. Let me move on to my triangle choke next. And I'm gonna practice that.
I can tap everywhere with my armbar.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try something new now.
Yeah, so you say, okay, my triangle choke now, that's a little weak. I'm not very good at that one. Okay, so now that one's gonna be the one I'm gonna practice. I'm gonna try to become a master of the triangle, right? And then you can move on from there. So we're always looking at building our skill set. It's like tool belts, right? If you know Batman, he's got his utility belt, and on there he's got his shark spray and all that sort of cool stuff.
His bat shark spray.
And he's got all of his tools on his tool belt. It's the same thing when you're learning jiu-jitsu. We give you one tool. We say, okay, this is the arm bar, put it in your tool belt. This is the Americana, put it in your tool belt. This is the triangle, put it in your tool belt. So when the time comes, you can take out those tools. Now, if Batman hasn't practiced using his Batarang and he takes it out of his tool belt and he's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know how to use this thing. What's he gonna do? He's gonna put it back in his tool belt. He's not gonna wanna use it because he hasn't practiced it. He's not a master of it, right? But Batman, he practices every day.
Batman's got mastery over everything.
Yeah.
That's just the way he goes. That's his superpower.
Yeah, he's a superhero, for goodness sake. Okay, so we want to show a little video to you guys.